Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Deal with D and J. Co-host Jacob Pereira. Alongside me is the delightful DJ McCatherine, back from his trip to Pittsburgh for the NFL draft. We'll talk about the NFL draft and DJ's experience a little bit later when we start to cover it, DJ. But let's dive right in because we got a jam-packed show. First round of the NBA NHL playoffs to start. Where do you want to go? You want to go hoop or you want to go puck? Where do you want to go?
Let's go NHL. I feel like there's been a lot of drama coming about. There are a couple close matchups that I'm seeing here. There are a couple not close matchups, a couple sweeps. A couple teams brought out the brooms. So let's start there. Why don't we start with one of the more entertaining bouts, Jacob? The Hurricanes and the Senators. Their last game was aggressively chaotic. Second period, they said what? 9 penalties? 9 penalties through the whole period?
Yeah, give or take, it was something along those lines. That series was over before it even began. Ottawa got, I think, Ottawa had one of the worst power plays I think I've seen ever. Like, they had a bunch of 5-on-4s. They were on the power play a bunch, and they could not capitalize any of it. Their best players didn't show up. They tried to play physical. They got met with a ton of speed. And then they just ran into Freddie Anderson having a great series as well. Linus Ullmark kept him in it as much as he could, but that team honestly kind of had no business being in the playoffs. But you play who's in front of you. So, entertaining series, a lot of goals, a lot of physicality. But it was one of those series for me that I was like, I'm not going to expend a lot of time to this one.
Fair enough. Talk to me about a closer one, the Lightning Canadians. Tell me about that series.
Yeah, Lightning Canadians, man, this is a heavyweight fight, DJ. Like, we're looking at, Fury, very similar to Stars Wild. These teams are so evenly matched. Braden Hagel has been the lifeblood for the Tampa Bay Lightning. Like, if he's not doing what he's doing, I think he has 6 points through 4 games right now, and or 6 goals through 4 games. I think he has through the series. Like, it's pretty impressive. And Dobes has played a really great job for the Canadians in net. I think both teams are so evenly matched. I still lean Tampa. By the time this comes out, I think it'll either be Game 6 or the series will have ended by then. Actually, no, we'll be fine. It'll be Game 6. But it's just, again, you look at Tampa Bay with Hagel, with Kucherov, with Point, Chernak, Darren Radish is having a career year. And so when you look at it, the Canadians are really missing Dobson. They're hurting. Hagel has 7.6 goals, excuse me. It just is one of those situations where I think it's going to be a 7-game series. It's going to be back in Tampa. Montreal is a place that just explodes in fandom when they hit the playoffs. That place is an electric factory. But I think Tampa finds a way still. Vasilevsky needs to steal a game, I think, where he stands on his head and they win kind of a gross 3-1 type of game. But Dobis has played amazing. Can't say enough things about him. So much credit to him. I think when you talk about Tampa Bay and Montreal, it's heavyweight fights. Whoever wins this series, to me, feels like they have a real shot at getting to the Cup. I said in the solo pod a couple weeks ago, as part of my predictions, is I think Tampa can get back there. They have the most experience, and the Florida Panthers are out of the way. So, there's no better time than right now to get to the Cup final again if you're Tampa Bay, because the big boogeyman is gone down in Miami.
Well, speaking of another heavyweight battle, you've got the Dallas Stars and the Minnesota Wild. Now, to be honest, I didn't know that Minnesota was doing so well throughout the entire year. I'm not big into hockey as it is, but I feel like going against Dallas, who played strong all year, um, that the series, though it's a 2-3 battle, is still a little bit tougher than I thought it was going to be. Is that a hot take?
No, it's a tough series for both sides. I mean, the Minnesota has a rookie goaltender, which, is a blessing and a curse because you have a guy who's never experienced the playoffs before, so he may be fueled by the adrenaline, but it's also a curse where he might be too juiced by the adrenaline and he overplays. But he's played super comfortable. He's played in his wheelhouse. Mikko Rantanen's had a huge. They just like the stars are out to play in this series. Like they're laying the hits, they're laying the bodies. Dallas has scored a bunch of goals on the power play. Minnesota's a little bit lazy taking care of the puck. They get some really bad penalties, but there's times where Ottinger's just getting beat clean, and it's by like the same two people. It's by Eriksson Ek and it's by Matt Boldy. Those two guys are giving Ottinger, nightmares. Wallstedt has played fantastic. The Wall of St. Paul is his nickname.
St. Paul.
He's played fantastic. He has a legit shot in Game 5, DJ, to steal this game. When this comes out, this game will have already passed, but he has a legit shot at the time of recording to steal Game 5 tomorrow on Tuesday. I don't think it's played fantastic. I think the Minnesota power play fans want it to be better. Quinn Hughes is easily the best player on the ice. And he's going to take over a game and he's going to want it more than somebody else there. And Dallas is just eagerly awaiting Roope Hintz's return, which is going to give them a much needed boost offensively, which, can help carry them to the latter part of the rounds if they can get over this Minnesota Wild team. This Minnesota Wild team easily can get, Wallstedt can steal you multiple games. So if they win Tuesday and it goes back to Minneapolis, Dallas has a very, very much a massive uphill battle. Both teams have split 1-1, so something's obviously got to give here.
Yeah, one more matchup that I really want to kind of dive into, Jacob, is the Vegas Golden Knights and the Utah Mammoth. Game 3 was really dominated by Utah. They went up 4-0. You didn't have the Golden Knights didn't score until 13 minutes and 20 seconds into the second period, or I think it's 13:20 in. So it's 7 minutes left in the second period, and Utah dominated 4-0. I mean, hockey's kind of like baseball, where it's like any given day, a team could come in, but it kind of seems like Utah has Vegas right where they want them.
Yeah, I think for Utah, they're kind of playing, and Philadelphia is very similar, but they're playing, with no pressure. There's no pressure on them, right? Everything's at their disposal. Vegas has to feel the pressure. Obviously, Vegas went through a coaching change, with 10 games left in the season, which is crazy to think about for them being on top of the West in that side of the bracket. But Utah's not scared. Belgemelka can easily steal you a game. I think Gunther and Keller have played phenomenal. I think Cruz and some of these other guys. And I'm just waiting for Vegas to kind of impose its will. And Utah's just not backing down. And so until then, Utah's going to play with house money. Their fans are incredible. They got all the juice. They stole one in Vegas. If you get another one here and protect home ice and go 2-0, go back to Vegas up 3-1, I like your odds to close that series out. But as Philadelphia is finding out right now, it is very, very hard to close the series out in the NHL. It is very hard. So I like Utah. I think Vegas still comes back and wins this series. Just because I think they're gonna mush Utah in a game and get scrappy, muck it up. They're gonna make them play their style, and that's where I think it all changes.
So talk to me a little bit, Jacob, about how much this could be playing into the Mammoth being in their second real season. We saw this with the Vegas Golden Knights, if I'm not mistaken, that Vegas came in year one and I think really made a dent in the NHL, and then in year two came in and won the Stanley Cup. Am I right?
It was I think the third or fourth year for Vegas.
Okay. I don't know why I thought that was earlier. But how much of this do you think could be playing a factor in, the Vegas Golden Knights coming into Utah, kind of a brand new team. This is their first playoff atmosphere. How much of a home field advantage is there for Utah versus any other team now, just because it's a brand new team. It's unknown territory for them. It's just people going berserk.
Yeah, I think but here's the thing though. The difference between those two teams is like Utah technically like is Arizona. Like they're the Coyotes. He just moved locations versus Vegas was a whole new entity. I think that's like the biggest difference. I think for Utah fans, they don't know any better, right? The only thing they really know is like Vegas or Arizona. In Arizona, most of these people haven't seen a playoff series there in God knows how long, right? So I think there's a lot of juice. I don't know if they have a ton of playoff tradition, unlike the Sabres, who like that game one, DJ, was for the Sabres and Bruins was basically banana factory. Like everyone was going crazy. It wasn't like it was so crazy, that atmosphere. I don't think Utah has that yet. Maybe after a couple playoff series, kind of like how San Jose is, you get to build that up over time. Kind of like a cast iron. You get that nice seasoning as you keep using your cast iron, the flavor stays in there. I think Utah needs a little bit of that. It's a brand new cast iron. They're not quite there yet fan-wise, but like they're bringing the juice, man. They're all right there, but I think Vegas finds a way. I just think they're too good to not find a way. At least, to not make this a competitive series.
So breeze me through a couple of these other series for me. I mean, I guess let's start with a little bit more of the entertaining of the last four that we could probably go over. Pittsburgh Penguins, Philadelphia Flyers. Right, that's a big rivalry. Is it? Yeah. Is it not for Pennsylvania?
It's a big one.
I was upset that Pittsburgh wasn't hosting while I was in Pittsburgh. I was up for the draft. I would have loved to go over to see a game.
Yeah,
and they were into it too. The people of Pittsburgh, they didn't mind the draft, Jacob. They were all focused on that hockey game on. I believe it was game one that Tuesday that I got in. Every single TV had it on. There might have been one small TV in the corner that had the Pirates on, but they were all tuned into the Flyers Penguins. Tell me a little bit about this series.
Flyers are stealing games. Vladar has been sensational. Parter Mertone has been incredible for them. Philly has come out, hit hard, play aggressive, shut down Pittsburgh's attack. Really have put them in a locker, but Pittsburgh in the specifically game 4 and currently right now has kind of find a way to get the job done. As we're recording, it's 2-1 Penguins. They're just mucking it up.
Penguins.
They just scored.
Oh, I'm sorry. You said score. I thought you were talking series. I'm sorry.
No. Score right now is 2-1. Philly leads it 3-1. Penguins are fighting for their season. They're very old versus the Flyers are very young. But again, it's very hard to close out a series in the NHL. Like very, very hard. You have a junkyard dog protecting their territory. Like they're going to do whatever it takes to survive. So, like, it's not so much like you can put them down and hopefully you get a count out. It is you got to submit them against their will. And I think the Flyers have to find that a little bit. Them being so young and so many guys being in the playoffs, I think is a little bit difficult for them. But they got to – I believe Philly can do it. I picked Philadelphia, but it's not going to be easy. So, but it's been an entertaining game. The guys have laid the hits for Philadelphia.
Is that a biased pick?
Huh?
Is that a biased pick?
Biased, but I also believe Philadelphia could beat Pittsburgh. Here's the thing. Pittsburgh doesn't...
I just have to make sure. I know you've got someone in your ear about those Philly sports.
No, Pittsburgh went with Skinner, and Skinner has lost 3 games. And then they went with Silvis for game 4, and they won. And right now, they're winning game 5. So, like, a goalie change can make all the difference, as we're going to talk Edmonton-Anaheim here soon. But it's like, it really, like, right now, it's like Philadelphia has to figure out how to score on the new goalie versus I think Pittsburgh's starting to figure out Vladar a little bit. But, like, I didn't like either of Pittsburgh's options in net. And Vladar was hot, and a hot goalie can win you a series. And I was like, let me take Philly. I said Philly goes 7. So I didn't expect him to go 3-0, but It's pretty impressive what they've done to start.
All right. With that being said, let's move on to the Edmonton Oilers and Anaheim Ducks. This series looks to be just about over, as Oilers will host Game 5 here tomorrow, Wednesday night, at the time of this viewing. Do the Ducks have a chance?
Yeah, they're scrappy. I picked Anaheim in this series as well to win.
Didn't you have Oilers repeating in this in our preseason for NA?
No, I had the Avalanche winning.
Mm.
I said Nathan McKinnon wins MVP, and if Nathan McKinnon wins MVP, Colorado probably wins the Stanley Cup.
Mm.
And I went against that logic and picked the Stars, or picked the Lightning. So
that sounds like a more biased pick.
That is probably the case. But Anaheim is just because, like, Edmonton has no goalie. They're starting Connor Ingram, and, like, Anaheim shut down Connor McDavid for the most part. And, like, Dostal has played really great as well. I've been super impressed with this team and the way they've played and the way they've battled the last couple games. Like, they won the 4-3 game in overtime the other night. They had the 7-4 domination. They barely lost to Edmonton in Game 1, right? It was a Kapanen goal at the last second with the last 2 minutes on there. But, like, they got hot. They're putting 6, 7, and 4 on these guys. Like, Ingram has been terrible. Well, Jacob, they started Jari the other night. That's even worse than Ingram. So now you have no answer in net, right? And if you have no answer in net, you're dead in the water. I'm not saying Anaheim has the best goalie in the world in Dostal, but, like, I know I'm getting from Dostal. Dostal played, 50-plus games this year and is really solid in between the pipes. He knows, he's getting comfortable. And Cutter Gauthier is a certified killer. Jackson Lacombe has been incredible defensively and leads the NHL in the playoffs in points right now. Like, Anaheim's playing fearless. They're not scared by this Edmonton team. I think Edmonton as a franchise, if they don't get out of this first round after back-to-back cup appearances, have to have a long look in the mirror about the roster of their team and the situation in net. Because the last 2 years, they were like, Stuart Skinner has to steal us the series. And he didn't. And now he's in Pittsburgh not doing what he did. But then you traded for Jari. He didn't pan out. Ingram comes in, sucks. You put in Jari, stinks. I don't know what else to tell you. So I like Anaheim. I picked them. They've done incredible. Yeah, I think they win this series.
Okay. Lastly here, we've got the – oh, go ahead.
Well, I was going to transition. Like, Buffalo and Boston has been sensational. Buffalo has turned up the heat, scored at will, took two in Boston, took it to them. Buffalo's no joke. They made a switch in net to go to Alex Lyon. I like the move, especially after Lehkonen gave up that many goals the other night. Swayman was barking at his guys. Loved the fire, but by the time this episode comes out, Boston's out of the playoffs. So Buffalo's a wagon, and so is Colorado. Colorado dummied the Kings, just absolutely dummied them. But the series, NHL has been phenomenal. It's really good. The quality. I hate the late puck drops though. The late puck drops are absolutely brutal. DJ, the Stars.
It's at 10 o'clock over there for Oilers Ducks. That's tomorrow night, 9:30 tonight, Monday.
Stars Wild didn't end until it was on. I think it played on a Thursday and went to overtime, and it didn't finish until 12:30 Central. It was brutal.
So, well, who are your Stanley Cup finalists?
Staying the same until they're eliminated. Dallas
Avalanche.
Nope. Dallas Lightning.
Dallas Lightning. Okay. All right. So I guess
NBA. Let's talk some NBA here, DJ. I don't know how much you're paying attention.
We've kind of been leaving NBA out of this whole thing here. They did kind of start at an inconvenient time for the both of us.
They started
at big NHL.
They started at an inconvenient time, but I also was like, a lot of these series shouldn't be close, and they kind of have. But they have been really great games. Minnesota's up 3-1 on Denver, but those games have been dogfights. San Antonio hasn't had the easiest time with Portland. We're watching LeBron and his absolute greatness grace us one more time with a prime LeBron performance with the Rockets and Lakers, and in Oklahoma City and Phoenix. they're just dummying the Suns. But I'm sick. I'm so sick of the Oklahoma discourse.
Oh, it's the SGA is cheating.
It's terrible. And the problem is, here's my thing with
The
SGA.
officiating.
It's the officiating's the problem. Like, they teed up Devin Booker for no reason. He got called for it off. Like, we don't need to rehash that whole thing. Devin Booker, the NBA refs are terrible. But it's like,
Devin Booker was right.
he was.
That's what we need to distinguish here.
But he's right. But SGA, what I hate is the foul baiting. Because you know why, DJ? Because he's so good. Because he's so good, he doesn't need the foul bait. That's the problem that I have. He said something like, I don't need it. I don't need it. Like, he doesn't need to get to the free throw line. It's like, we know, brother. That's why we're mad when you do it. We're mad at all of you when you do it. You're all buckets. We know y'all can hoop. Just hoop. Like, that's all we're asking. Like, the foul baiting has been ridiculous. Like, when you see some stat lines where he has over 20 attempts at the free throw line, you're sitting there going, what am I watching? I don't want to watch.
He's got more attempts in some of these games than the whole other team combined.
I think I want to touch upon this one because it's starting right now. It's in the middle of the game. Orlando is up 2-1 on the Pistons. I did not see this coming because I thought the Magic were dead in the water, and somehow they're giving the Pistons a run for their money. So, like,
I think a couple things here, if you don't mind me just jumping in.
Jump in.
I think Orlando was an aggressively overlooked team with a lot of injuries this year. And I think that's kind of why they're in this 8-seed hole, but now you've got some people healthy. Desmond Bane's healthy. Franz Wagner's healthy. Paolo Banchero has been doing what Paolo Banchero has done the last few years in Orlando, and he's being a dog. And I actually I don't think the Pistons team is bad. I just think that they're an aggressively overrated number 1 seed, right? I think we've seen pure dominance. Like, if you would have seen Boston up there at the 1 seed, I don't think anybody would think twice about it, right? But, like, I looked at Detroit and I was like, I didn't even know that they were on this level this year. Maybe the Eastern Conference is a little weaker than what I remember. I know the Eastern Conference as a whole has gone through some injuries with the exception of what I believe is the Cavs have been pretty healthy this year. But Detroit has just been – they've been flying under the radar. They've been a really good under-the-radar team, and I just don't think that personally Cade Cunningham has the ability to carry this team through the playoffs as a 1 seed, but they have done a fantastic job throughout the course of the season to put them in a position to be the 1 seed. But I think Orlando Magic has just been an aggressively underrated team, an overlooked team even more so.
Yeah, I think when you look at Orlando, they gave up the 4 firsts for Desmond Bane. Right, you have Paolo, you have Franz, like you have this team that on paper should have been an 8 seed. And it just seems like they've clicked. Seems like Paolo's seeing the ball better, seeing the ball going to hoop more. He kind of remembered who he was. Desmond Bane's hitting threes. They're outmanning Detroit a little bit on the glass from what I see in highlights because I'm not, there's so many sports you can't watch them all. I'm just trying to watch bits and pieces here and there. But, like, Orlando has played really, really well, and I think a ton of credit goes to them. I want to talk a little bit about the 2 series that are tied 2-2. Cleveland, Toronto. Welcome to the James Harden experience, DJ, because he's back and he is making his mark, unfortunately, for Cleveland, which is not what you want when you're playing
not at this point.
And I'm going to be honest, both teams look like they stink. Like,
they haven't been playing great.
They both look like they don't want to be there. They both look like they'd rather be in Cancun. Like, it's been bad, but I'm interested to hear your take with Cleveland, since you're a Cleveland, Ohio guy. Like, they both look like they don't want to be there, DJ.
Yeah, I think that's just the main point, is that I just think both teams are struggling, and that's kind of what it is. You have players like Brandon Ingram, who's really showing up. These teams are shooting horrendously. I believe through the first half, both teams were shooting under 20% from the 3 going into halftime yesterday, I believe it was. And like you said, just the energy does not seem like it's there for either team. I've unfortunately haven't had the chance, again, because I was in Pittsburgh, to sit down and like really digest these games. But I mean, the scoring performance in Game 4 was miserable. Both teams under 100 points, which, I mean, seems like it would be like a pretty good defensive battle, but it was just a poor offensive performance, especially when you're coming over 3 games where the winning team has had 115 plus points. So it'll be interesting. The series going back to Cleveland on, I believe, Thursday, and we'll see if somebody can get something turned around here. But until then, it's quite an interesting dynamic here.
Couldn't say it better myself. Knicks, Hawks, it seems like the Knicks low-key kind of slept on Atlanta, and Atlanta was just like, we're going to just play ball, and if you don't take it seriously, you're going to lose, and they did. The Knicks came back in Game 4, showed them what they were made of. Karl Anthony Towns, I said it in the preview, you got, like, he is the key to the Knicks' success. And here's the thing, you're going to probably get Boston in the second round if you can get out of Atlanta. And, like, you've taken down the Celtics before. Like, this is it. And you're probably going to either be faced with Detroit, who's not used to being there, and the Magic. Because I truly think whoever wins between Orlando and Detroit will beat the winner of Cleveland-Toronto. So then you're looking at that matchup, and, like, I think the representative from the East comes from the winner of Knicks-Celtics. I have the Celtics personally, but if you're a Knicks fan, I think I heard this on, like, part of my take where one of them was a Knicks fan. He's like, well, if we just get to the second round, that's a win. No, it is the NBA Finals. That is why you destroy your team and rebuilt it and fired Thibodeau and the whole 9 yards, is to make the NBA Finals. You've been to the conference finals. You lost to Indiana last year on their incredible run, but now it's time to punch your ticket to the NBA Finals. And if you can get over the hump of the Celtics again, it's all there for you. Very similar to Tampa Bay. So, see a little guest star down there.
I know our mascot. You got West Dog. He's hiding.
But, like, you see what I'm saying with the Knicks? Like, I think Boston takes care of the Sixers. Sixers are just, I think they're a couple years away from being in some real contention.
Mm-hmm.
Love VJ Edgecombe, obviously. Love Tyrese Maxey, but they need some more pieces with those guys. I truly think they need to move off Embiid and just, like, let the two guys be your forefront and build around the wings. But, like, yeah, if you're the Knicks, like, you got to get to the NBA Finals, and that has to go taking the Hawks seriously. And I truly think the Knicks have not been taking the Hawks seriously.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we breezed through Thunder, Suns already.
Lakers, Rockets. Let's just talk about LeBron's greatness, man. Greatest of all time. I mean, he's my GOAT. He's your GOAT.
He is my GOAT. But my GOAT had 8 turnovers the other day.
Your GOAT did, but guess what? He also is the reason why they
game-tying 3 to go into overtime.
He's also the reason why they had a 3-0 lead and a 3-1 lead right now. Like, it's been incredible. He needs help if he wants to go up against the Thunder. Like, he's going to need it. But he's been sensational. The fact that we get to see, like, this small glimpse of prime LeBron has been great.
Like LeBron that needs to do everything again. Like, this is kind of back towards 2015 LeBron or 2008 LeBron,
like
where
it's like Cleveland LeBron.
Mm-hmm. Where he didn't need, or where he needed to do everything by himself, and he needed to rely less on everybody around him. You know, he had D Wade and Chris Bosh in Miami, and then 2016 he had Love and Irving. You know, but now he's kind of back in these random years where he needs to do it all himself. Right? He needs to keep his team alive.
But people on TikTok, it's an anime called My Hero Academia, and one of the main powers is One for All, which is like the culmination of all these different powers, and it gets passed down, and it's like we're watching Braun uses Braun for All, and the embers that he covered, he has to break it out one last time. That's really what I feel like I'm watching, is just him just like, he knows he has to channel it. It's probably going to like cost him maybe 2 seasons. He's going to be like, man, my body's going to hurt after this. Mm-hmm. But like, he's crushing it. So Rockets don't really know what's going on, but they get Kevin Durant back, I think, for Game 5. So hopefully that swings the pendulum a little bit back in their favor, but I think the Lakers are expecting Austin Reeves to come back, so that may also help alleviate some of the scoring burden for the GOAT.
Yeah.
Nuggets, Wolves, just these two teams hate each other. There's some real animosity built up. They're winning without Anthony Edwards, but DiVincenzo going down is a huge hit for Minnesota.
So Anthony Edwards being down too.
Yeah, I just think it's hard for them. I just think it's hard for Denver to do anything against this Minnesota team. I think this Minnesota team's maybe being underappreciated. But, yeah, I don't have a whole lot on that other than they like to fight each other. So, and I don't have a lot on Spurs. Trailblazers is other than just like Wemby. Wemby came back just fine. San Antonio's starting to lock it in a little bit. They've been really impressive. And I don't think you listened to this episode, but I had Spurs Celtics in the NBA Finals with the Spurs winning it all. So the Spurs are my NBA champ.
Oh,
So
okay.
a little bit of a hot take, I guess, but
I mean, it can't be that hot. I mean, they're a 2 seed. They're a 2 seed for a reason, as long as Wemby can stay healthy. So,
all right, NFL draft. First and foremost, DJ was boots on the ground there. So DJ, before we talk some winners and losers and some maybe surprises with some draft picks, I know I got some with Minnesota, but
right.
Talk to me about the experience being on the carpet, being in the environment backstage, seeing the guys achieve their childhood dreams. Like, talk to me about everything that transpired in Pittsburgh before we dive into these draft grades.
Yeah, it was a very cool experience. Pittsburgh has a skyline that is as advertised. Man, the Three River conversion right there with the Allegheny, the Mauna Lahungai, and the Ohio River is gorgeous. The mountain that overlooks both the sports district and downtown. The bridges that can connect downtown to the sports district. You know, it is gorgeous over there. And I heard a lot of people told me that it wasn't a great representation of the city, that Pittsburgh is normally a dreary city, but we caught like 4 good days. But anyway, there was, for 4 days, it was immaculate. The weather was immaculate. It was a little warm, you know, having to lug around a 150-pound cart for 4 days, and the amount of walking that we had to do, because it was a sports district, right? And then across the river was the where the draft was held, the red carpet was held on the downtown side. And so I had to lug the cart back and forth, back and forth. Oh my gosh, it was so much walking. My body aches. But you know, the red carpet was cool. A little less chaotic than I kind of thought it was going to be. I mean, as athletes came down, you know, you didn't really know who they were going to talk to, who they were going to spend time with. It was all, you know, you had to grab people or people's agents while they were walking them down and be like, hey, we're from here. We would love to interview them. You know, you tried to grab the people that your team or like the kind of the city that you were there for, who would be available at that time. So like, we unfortunately didn't get any of the Ohio State guys on the red carpet, but we got David Bailey on the carpet. I believe we let Ty Simpson pass. Who's the wide receiver? Mekhi Lemon, we interviewed as well.
Weird guy.
He's interesting. He's an interesting fella, for sure.
That's a nice way to say he's weird, DJ.
You know, Matador Delane, he was cool. We interviewed him. And then I did eventually get the interview with Sonny Styles. Me and my sports anchor, we snagged him after he was drafted to the Commanders. And so behind the scenes of that was really cool too. You know, it's just a lot of people achieving their dreams. I've got videos from inside the green room, like as they were setting it up. So that area where their families sit and their agents sit is very cool. And then we obviously had the interview with Goodell, which they're really expanding this idea of the draft and trying to make it a 3-day event. Like, my pitch to the NFL, Jacob, would be they need more athletes at the event. They need more of these draft picks there and present. Like, I get why you would want the first round of potential first round picks there, right? But if they want this to be a 3-day event, right, bring more athletes. Give your people who have traveled all this way a reason more so to stay, right? When you can have people interact with the crowds that are there for their team. Like, if, you know, somebody from LA traveled all the way to, you know, let's do a different one. Let's do Buffalo, because Buffalo traded out of the first round. Imagine a Buffalo fan traveling from Buffalo, New York, all the way to Pittsburgh, which isn't really all that far, but, you know, Buffalo to Pittsburgh to see their first round pick, and they trade out of it. Like, what's the point of them being there? Like, if they don't get to meet or have the opportunity to meet any of the people that their team drafts.
Yeah, I think with the NFL, it's become more of a spectacle. Like, since they started traveling it from Radio City, which has, I think, been probably the best move that they've done. Because getting to Radio City was super hard. Now it's super easy and accessible.
Mm-hmm.
You get to see a city. You get to check out the draft. Do they have a bunch of activations like a throw station? Like, do they have those type of things? Because I find it hard pressed that like you're gonna stand there for hours in your spot in the hopes that your team's gonna draft. Like, and like again, I do think the picks is a problem. I wanted like they only had 17 guys, and 16 out of 17 of them were done after day one, except Caden McDonald.
Right.
They had some other guys there, like they had the Uba Bernard guy in the 7th round and Eli Heitenreich who was there. So like they can invite guys on different days.
Yeah, I like you don't need them for each day, but I just think the incorporation of having people there, expand the green room. You know, like there are people with a high probability to be drafted, and I can get the reservation of not wanting guys to sit there through 3 days and not be drafted, you know? But like I think the connection that people would get with their team's fans and vice versa could be a spectacle like no other. And no, they didn't just sit there waiting for their teams. They had all types of events set up and food, local vendors set up there. They had field goal tries and throwing things, and
they had a concert too.
They had concerts, yeah. I think, and it's all free. From what I understand, to get in is free.
Yeah, it's the people up front are selected by the teams. Like the people closest to the stage are like season ticket holders that the team selects.
Yeah, I think there's 12 or 16 seats in the pit is what they call it.
But looks amazing. Glad you had it. But let's dive in. Next year, Washington D.C. 27. I might have to make a flight out there. Me and the boy, boots on the ground.
Yes, sir.
But let's dive into it here. First round. Let's talk about the first round, and then we'll talk about the teams. Right. Obviously, I want to hear 3 winners, 3 losers as quickly as as short as you possibly can at the end of this bit.
Mm-hmm.
But there was definitely some day one surprises. Jeremiah Love to Arizona at 3. I think like there's a lot of rumors happening. We all thought they were smoke screens. Turns out they weren't smoke screens. Cardinal Tate going to Tennessee was a little bit of a surprise. Given Arvell Reese was like on the board and Robert Saleh is who he is. Looking for Fred Warner. Cleveland, I think, stayed put at 6, which I was surprised by.
They did not. They traded out.
Traded with Kansas City, my bad.
Yeah.
Kansas City jumped up.
But they didn't get anything in return.
Yeah.
That was the big thing. It was basically a pick swap in round 3.
Which they should have gotten more.
Yes.
Strong arm them. Get 2 seconds out of it this year and next year's. For a pick swap like that. They get Mansour. Chiefs get Mansour Delane. I had him in my mock, which one DJ, 25,000 views, by the way.
My guy.
Had him falling for some reason. Looking back, you're like, Jacob, you're an idiot. But 7, Commanders of Sonny Styles got that one pick. Right. The Saints went Jordan Tyson. And I was surprised by that move, given that you still had Bain on the board. Like, you had Downs on the board, and then the Giants at 10. I'm sitting there going, they're going to pick Downs again. No, they go Fano.
Giants really, really surprised me with. You said no.
Was it Manungai? Mawagai?
Yeah, Francis Maianoa.
Okay. Yeah, so they went with Mauanoa. Then it was Fano for the Browns.
Fano went to Cleveland.
Yep. And then they freaking Dallas sits there and has to do nothing, and they get Caleb Downs at 11. I think they swapped with Cleveland.
Miami.
And swapped with Miami. Thank you. And they go and get Downs. Miami getting Caden Proctor was a little bit of a surprise, but like, what is a team like Miami going to really do in that situation? You stripped it down to the bolts, so you got to rebuild it from the lineup. So I don't hate the idea. I was surprised by who they picked.
Yeah, let me just hop in with that one real quick. I mean, did you know that, let's see here. The Dolphins had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 picks in this draft. 13. And I actually don't mind the Caden Proctor pick. I think Ruben Bain sitting there and watching Miami pass on him really hurt. I think that really hurt. And I don't know that I blame Miami a ton, again, because you had a lot of people talk about the arm length being an issue
Yeah.
for them. And I even saw some things afterward that made me kind of believe more so that it could be more of a factor than, just how silly it sounds. But I
Well, it's
like
just
the
like,
aspect of, like, all the good teams build from the offensive line out, right? Like, if you have a solid offensive line, you can damn near do anything that you want. So I like the pick.
yeah, I like the pick. Baltimore win Ionoa, which I thought they were going to do anyways. But then the Rams in front of the Ravens did something I think nobody saw coming, right? Mekhi Lemon's still on the board, right? Kenyon Sadiq is still on the board. And all of us are sitting here thinking Ruben Bain's on the board. Like, go get yourself a game wrecker because you were right there. And they decide to go draft the QB of the future for them, and they draft Ty Simpson, which it looked like Sean McVay was not on the same
Particularly
page as
thrilled
Les
for.
Snead. Or he was told, hey, this is it. Like,
Right.
Stafford, we can't be shackled by Stafford. Which, on the one hand, it's like, okay, here's my take. On the one hand, it's great to think about the future. Yeah, you don't want to be stuck in a position, but guess what? The Seattle Seahawks just won a Super Bowl with a guy they didn't have to draft. They just dropped a guy into their offense. You could do that if you're the Rams. So instead, if I'm the Rams, I kind of have this with Dynasty Fantasy Football. It's like, I'm not a fan of rookies anymore. I want proven commodities.
Mm.
You know what I mean? I'll take some rookies and try and swap them to people who are like super eager. But rookies are nothing until they produce. They have value of the hypothetical in the projection, but Ty Simpson has to wait 2 or 3 years to start.
Which I don't think is a bad thing, though.
It's not a bad thing. He needed to wait anyways to whatever team he goes. But if I'm the Rams, I can get Mekhi Lemon. Now I have Puka Nacua and Mekhi Lemon for the next minimum 5 years at their peaks, right? And I can just drop in a quarterback. Stafford retires in a year or two, drop in a quarterback. Guess who might be up for their contract in a year or two, DJ? A Mr. Joe Burrow. He may not like what's going on in Cincinnati. Come over to L.A. Let's go win Super Bowls. Team's right here. Now we add you. We're unstoppable. If I'm the Rams, I'm not thinking about rookie quarterbacks anymore.
Right.
If I'm 1 win away from the Super Bowl, you're probably a drive away from winning this, winning the NFC Championship game and going to the Super Bowl. Instead, I get the logic at times when you're like, oh, we're never going to be this high up again. We need to go get our guy down. I was talking with someone at work today, and I was talking to Aaron, and he goes, what that pick signals to me is that the Rams think Ty Simpson's better than any other quarterback they're going to get next season.
Which could be true.
Granted, they may never be up in the top 15 again to go get a quarterback. But I think my argument for the Rams is more so the Seahawks didn't win a championship with a homegrown quarterback, right? The Eagles won the Super Bowl, and Jalen Hurts was, I think, a day two. He was a day 2 guy. Your quarterback is like your running back. You can kind of come out of anywhere at times. Brock Purdy, 7th round, Mr. Irrelevant, right?
Right.
I think for a Rams offense of that caliber, I don't think you needed to go get a guy of the future. I think you can go get Mekhi. And also, you signal to Stafford in your fan base that you're going win now mode. And then now you're going, no, we need to build for the future. When you're currently in your championship window, You know who went build for the future? Minnesota with J.J. McCarthy. Granted, at the time we had Sam Darnold. We didn't think Sam Darnold was going to be who he was, so we needed a quarterback. But Minnesota did that. Then we let Darnold walk after going 14-3. Atlanta, not saying Atlanta was in win now mode, but they go and sign Kirk Cousins, and then in the top 10, sign Michael Penix and draft him because they were concerned about Kirk Cousins, even though Kirk Cousins was not the issue for Atlanta. So to me, I get the logic. I don't agree with the decision, and everybody in these pundit circles being like, it makes the most sense. It doesn't. Get you a game record in the slot with Mekhi Lemon and just destroy people. And then everyone being like, well, when's the last time an impact rookie like, has done stuff for a team. I'm like, look at Karloftis for the Chiefs defensively. Opposite of Chris Jones, that's a guy that comes to mind immediately is George Karloftis. He was an instant game wrecker when he hit the league. So that was my take there. Going through Bain to the Tampa, great spot. Sadiq to New York, don't hate it, to the Jets. Minnesota took Caleb Banks, the biggest reach of the entire draft. Thought we were going to get Dylan Thieneman. That boy's nasty. Instead, we choose to take a guy who, when healthy, is an unstoppable force in the trenches. Except, DJ, he's a 6'6" big boy with foot problems. That boy is going to be on the bench a lot, injured. So, not a fan of the pick. I really wanted Thieneman so bad. Thieneman would have been perfect in purple. Instead, he goes to Chicago. I'm going to speed run the last couple picks. Carolina went Freeling, loved the move. Lemon to the Eagles. Jumped in front of Pittsburgh, who was on the phone with Mikhail.
Oh, that was so wild of a transition there. Bonkers story.
And then Pittsburgh goes and gets Max Hineker from Arizona State, Akeem Mesidor.
And then they stole Jeremy Bernard in round 2, which I thought was a fantastic pick. Because they wanted, we knew they wanted Mekhi Lemon, but talk about a reversal and then a snag in the second round. Like, I question the offensive tackle move for them because, again, they really needed the wide receiver, and Philly just ripped it right underneath them. But Jeremy Bernard in the second round was a freaking baller steal.
Akeem Mesidor to the Chargers, like the move, pair him up. Get after the quarterback a little bit more. Malachi Lawrence at 20, I thought was a little bit of a reach, given Keldrick Folk was still on the board. I thought Folk was a better prospect than Lawrence. But Lawrence has a lot of tools, a lot of traits. A lot of people are super high on him. So he was there. Cleveland went Casey Concepcion. Dylan Thieneman went to Chicago. Texans took Keelan Rutledge, which I said it in our mock and on my regular mock. Dolphins took a reach for Chris Johnson at corner, who got some late steam in the last 2 days due to Jamad McCoy's knee issue. Caleb Lomu, Peter Woods to the Chiefs, a game wrecker in the middle, pair up with Chris Jones. Omar Cooper to the Jets. Keldrick Folk to Tennessee, and Seattle sits pretty and drafts another running back in Jadarian Price.
That was another surprise in the first round. Let me tell you, a lot of people were caught off guard. It was a great pick. I think the pick was great, but I just don't think anybody had on their bingo card not only Jeremiah Love, going to Arizona, but 2 first-round running backs from Notre Dame happening either. Because he'll go in there and he'll start.
In day 2, we started off with the Niners drafting DeZon Stribling out of complete left field and then they took Denzel Boston, not Denzel, and then with Denzel Boston still on the board.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, whoa.
Because that's who Cleveland picked up, right?
I was like, who's this guy? According to ESPN, he's the 15th best wide receiver in the class. Went day 2. I think there's a lot of so let's talk some winners and losers. Teams, it can be their draft, it can be strategy, all the 9 yards, DJ. Who's your first? Let's start with our first loser. Who is your first loser, DJ? Biggest loser of the draft?
I think the easiest one is going to be Miami. I think they were in a good spot to pick up a good defensive player, especially in Caleb Downs, like he was there. But when I think I have a better one, I hope you don't steal. But my first one is going to be Miami. I think they had a great opportunity to pick a great defensive player in Caleb Downs in the position that they were in. I think it would have been a player that would have given their franchise some hope and their fans some hope as well. I don't. This is no diss to Caden Proctor, and I like the dynamic that they do it in. But I just think that trading back, the player that was available, the player that, would have sold out jerseys for your team in the next year. Do you know whose jersey? Take a guess of whose jersey they're selling right now in the NFL store that are on the ground. They had one representation from each team, given with the exception of the Steelers because it was in Pittsburgh.
For the Browns?
No. For Miami, who was the representation? for Miami this year, do you think?
Achan?
That's who it was. And he's not a bad running back. Caleb Downs would have been drafted, and he would have been the next person on the board. So I just think that Miami, off the top of the dome, they were my loser.
I was in between two.
Just say the first one. Don't tell me the two. Just rip one off. I'm hoping you don't steal mine. I looked at him. I scrolled to the left. I saw Jax right there, and I was like, "Oh, don't take it." They had the worst draft. I'm picking
him in front of Minnesota because at least Minnesota addressed their needs in the draft. I just did not agree in the order and the players of which they addressed those needs, but they addressed them. Gladstone last year was ballsy, went big, and got Travis Hunter. Now they're making him a corner-only guy with a gadget wide receiver plays. But then you kind of look like he's a big genius because he had Bashan Tootin, who's going to be a big guy. Like, he looked like he was doing all these different things. But they get their first pick here at 56, DJ. And I'm going to just read you the dudes surrounding the board. 56, okay. I'll go 3 picks up, and I'll go 3 picks down. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
C.J. Allen, linebacker, goes to Indianapolis. Eli Stowers, tight end, goes to Vanderbilt. Goes to Philly. Gabe Yakis, edge, goes to New England. After the Jags draft, the Bears go Logan Jones, center. The Browns go Eman McNeil-Warren, which steal for you guys.
I know.
We'll touch upon them.
I am going to.
Marlon, tight end out of Michigan to Texans. And then Max Clare, Ohio State tight end, who I loved. And instead, the Jags take Nate Borenkircher, who a lot of people expected in the 4th and 5th round, and they took him in round 2. So I don't know where Gladstone and Liam Cohen stood, but I didn't love that pick. I didn't love the Albert Regis pick. I mean, the guard out of Oregon was good. I love Josh Cameron from Baylor, so I think he's a great slot guy. He has great hands. Underrated, but none of these guys scream great exact pick. They don't they made 10 selections, but they didn't do anything to improve their team. I think they reached on a bunch of dudes, especially the tight end in the first pick. I thought they had bigger needs than tight end in that realm. I have on here, they need a linebacker, D-tackle, a safety, a running back, according to ESPN. You still had Emmanuel McNeil-Warren to get a safety there. If you needed a linebacker, you could have gone the Anthony Hill out of Texas. You could have traded up and get C.J. Allen. They were in the back half of round 2, so I'll look a little bit in the round 3 of who the next linebacker was. But there wasn't you needed to be aggressive, and they chose to be way too aggressive and maybe try and think they're outsmarting everyone. It doesn't hurt to go get another corner either. You have Igbinosun was still on the board.
Yep.
I wasn't in love with that pick. So for me, the Jags are what is my big loser. My big winner, DJ, for me, I'm not gonna take him. I'm not gonna do that to you. That would not be fair. But
fair.
I really enjoyed. I'm trying to quickly
go through everybody's picks.
Yeah, I'm trying to see what everyone's picks are.
Let me say something real quick.
I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna dive in. Actually,
okay.
I actually loved what Philadelphia did. 100% bias, obviously, but dude, they not only addressed wide receiver after the AJ Brown news, they got the 3rd best wide receiver at pick 20. They got the 2nd best tight end in the class in Eli Stowers, who is a freak athlete, brother. You drafted Cole Payton, doesn't bother me, but it's more so Markel Bell is a great fit on the offensive tackle line. Drafting for future needs, develop him, let him be ready to go for if Lane Johnson gets hurt. You have guys ready to go. But now you have Devontae Smith, Mekhi Lemon. You have a big, bold tight end in Eli Stowers with Dallas Goedert still, he got one more year. And then they added Jonathan Grenard via trade with Minnesota. And, now you, instead of drafting a linebacker, you solved your linebacker issue. And he can be paired up with Zach Bond. And, I thought what they did in this draft class was really, really good. And I just loved their first 2 picks of Lemon and Eli Stowers.
It's going to be a hot take, I think. Because I'm going to say my team is going to eventually come up. But another great draft class It's the New York Jets. Hear me out here. David Bailey, I don't think it was the best player that they could have gotten. I think his floor is lower than somebody like Arvell Reese or Sonny Styles that they could have gotten. But David Bailey at pick 2. Kenyon Sadiq out of Oregon at pick 16. And then they traded back in, or excuse me, I believe they traded in twice to the first round. Omar Cooper Jr. from Indiana, wide receiver at pick 30. And then they got D'Angelo Ponce at round 2, pick 18, which I thought was an absolute steal. And then you had Jarrell Jackson Jr. out of Florida State, big body, 5'3", at the 3rd pick in the 4th round. So after that, they got Cade Klubnik. I just think I didn't even expect him to be drafted. But they picked up a good, solid guard out of Miami as well. Inez Cooper in the late round in round 6. But I think, like, if I'm a Jets fan, I'm walking out of this draft very happy. You just hope that they get the team together in order to use these players. But I think their picks were fantastic. I thought they were really good. And yeah, go ahead.
Loser. I'm going to talk about Minnesota now. I thought Minnesota. It was a terrible draft. Again, I don't hate where we went. I hate in the order and the people of who we picked. I think the Caleb Banks pick is going to be bad. It's going to not turn out the way I think they wanted to. Broke his foot twice, one in the season, once again at the combine. Sideline, but like Peter Woods was on the board. Kenny McDonald was on the board if you wanted to take a defensive tackle. Shocked you pass on Dylan Thieneman. I mean, you got Jacoby Thomas in the 3rd round who had an all-time quote. If they're wearing an opposite team's jersey, that's food in my mama's mouth, and they're taking food from my mama's mouth, and I can't have that happen. I like Jake Goladay. I thought he was really good. Caleb Tiernan, big offensive lineman from Northwestern, 6'8", 323, tons of experience, ton of health. So Minnesota gets to bolster up their O-line a little bit. But I just don't feel like they did anything super special. Demings has a chance to maybe be a difference maker late. Damon Claiborne is just going to sit in the running back room there. I wasn't moved by what Minnesota did. If Minnesota switched the vibes and it was Dylan Thieneman, and then it was Goladay, and then it was somebody else, and the rest of the board shakes out differently, I think we're having a different conversation. But I just thought it was a failure. We technically don't have a GM. We thought if we put our heads together, we would make the right decision. And apparently there are a bunch of idiots in that room. So the Minnesota Vikings are my second loser as well.
I think as far as losers go, I think this team just kind of needs to go in here because they weren't aggressive at all. And I think that's the Denver Broncos. I mean, they didn't have a pick until the 3rd round. 3rd round, pick 2 was their first pick of the draft. And so, I mean, I think they were a solid team in general last year. Obviously, Bo Nix going down really threw it for a loop. But I just didn't like that they weren't aggressive in this draft. One, I think it was boring. 2, there was an opportunity especially if they went a considerable amount of defense in here, they could have drafted up or traded up to some extent to get some players that were on the board. And then I'm just going to transition into my 3rd winner, and that is going to be Cleveland. I think they did not get the haul that they should have for trading back the 6th overall pick. As you mentioned, I think they could have gotten another 2nd rounder. But who they got and where they got him was not too shabby. They went Spencer Fano with their first pick in the draft, which addressed a huge need. And then their next 2 picks were spent on wide receivers. Casey Concepcion out of Texas A&M, who was the 6th ranked receiver in this class, and then turned around and went Denzel Boston, which was a steal because he was the 4th overall wide receiver in this draft. And they got him in the 2nd round. And then, like you mentioned earlier, another steal in going Emmanuel McNeil-Warren out of Toledo, who was the 3rd safety in this draft. And so they obviously bolstered after that Austin Barber out of Florida, Parker Brailsford out of Alabama, and then Justin Jefferson, linebacker out of Alabama, which I thought was also a great pick for him as well, because I thought he was very solid for that Alabama defense last year. And then a little bit of a surprise pick in the 6th round. They went Taylor Green, right? Quarterback. I thought it was kind of just a random pick, but it's probably just as random as picking up Shador Sanders in the 5th pick of last year's draft. So at least that tracks for Cleveland and in the slightest. And maybe it adds a little bit of competition. Maybe it's an experience thing, maybe. So I'll be interested to see what they do with that. But I thought Cleveland was another team who drafted fairly well. And if anything, if the quarterback situation doesn't work out very well, hopefully they either get a chance next year to pick up a quarterback. That's good. And we'll try it all again next year. Or maybe they tank for Jeremiah Smith, which would make me
I guess we'll kind of cap it here with this last winner here. I actually really enjoyed what the Giants did. ESPN gives them a B, but their first 3 picks, DJ, just scream like they were ready. They got exactly their needs, and they fulfilled them. Arvell Reese at 5, smash. Francis Marinoa, smash pick. Colton Hood, corner out of Tennessee, smash pick as well. Malachi Fields, a decent value at wide receiver. Add him to Malik Neighbors. Thought that was really good. The first 4 picks, I'm sitting here, I'm going, I love these picks. They hit exactly their needs. You protect Dart. You bolster the defense, and you give Dart another weapon to throw to. You didn't hurt your running back room with Cam Scatterbo. And, you added some 6th-round flyers here with, Jamison Travis in the D tackle spot. But those first 4 picks, DJ, is really kind of what I base a lot of drafts on. And those are as good of a 4 picks as you're going to see because they hit every single need that they had. And they hit them with, they got some argue, top edge rusher, top off the ball linebacker, depending on how you want to use Arvell Reese, which I think is going to be off the ball linebacker. Let Thibodeau and Abdul Carter and Brian Burns go to work. Then you have Maui Noah, protect Dart, and then you add to your secondary with Colton Hood. Really great job. I thought both New York teams did great. Obviously, I think the Jets are setting everything up for a quarterback in 2027. But still, I think the Giants crushed it as well. It has Harbaugh's fingerprints all over that draft.
Yeah, I think one thing that I was kind of hoping, and this is kind of where I'll cap off my whole draft analysis, was I was very interested to see what the Raiders were going to do at 1. I love the aspect of a quarterback sitting behind an inexperienced player, but I would have loved to see the chaos of them trading out the number 1 spot or them going anything other than quarterback, because quarterback was probably the least desired position in this draft. Obviously, the Rams took us by surprise, but most NFL teams are pretty set on their quarterbacks with the exception of a few, right? Whether they lost them and they added them later in this offseason or what. But that I would have loved to see the chaos that Las Vegas could have caused by not going Fernando number 1. But congratulations to them.
Well, DJ, last little bit of news here. Brandon, I don't know if you've seen this yet, but Brendan Sorsby checked himself into a gambling addiction facility because he's currently under investigation by the NCAA. He apparently, DJ, has been betting on Indiana football games when he was at Indiana, betting them to lose. He was in Cincinnati betting on Cincinnati Reds games. He would live bet, DJ.
Who was?
Brendan Sorsby, the Texas Tech quarterback, $6 million man. Can't believe you didn't see this. It was all over the news today.
Oh, what?
So Texas Tech is currently without a quarterback because even if he comes back, he's going to get hit by the NCAA. Here, DJ, it got reported that he would live bet pitches in game if they were balls and strikes. You know how big of a gambling addict you got to be to live bet balls and strikes in a game, the entirety of the game.
Oh, that is wild.
So, obviously, don't want to talk too much about it. He's getting the help that he needs, but Texas Tech is in some trouble. Paid the man a lot of money. They were perennial CFP favorites, and now who knows what happens with them now. So, we'll talk about it more as more info comes out as we get a better picture, but Brendan Sorsby, gambling addiction, potentially hurting Texas Tech.
Wow. Crazy.
With that, We have been to Deal with D&J. Like, comment, share, subscribe on all platforms. Catch you on the next one.